Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here are Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to the show, Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, happy weekend.
And it is a great weekend, a nice summer weekend. We are, we're cruising into the fall, but before we do that, let's just make it as hot as possible.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Before we, the kids are, back to school time. Everybody get your sweaters out. No.
We're gonna make sure you got shoes on when you run across the asphalt.
Holy cow. I saw in Phoenix, which is, 20 days plus of having 115 degrees. In Phoenix, the burn units in hospitals are filling up because of people falling.
Yeah,
on the ground,
and getting cooked,
and and burning themselves. Oh my God! It's like, and I don't want to be glib and make light. Older people fall down a lot, and they probably are having a harder time getting up.
Well,
so while they're down there,
entertain you to get up really fast.
Yeah, where it's like woo, but jumping up, I just broke my hip.
Yeah,
but I feel like even if I fell down on one of these things, I would, have to get some salve.
Oh, quickly. Yep.
To put on.
I did it on my car handle the other day, grabbing it while I sat in the sun all day and like,
youch! And it was, it's really interesting, having a child, Jeff, is a learning experience for both of us. But trying to teach him the pool deck is hot. Do not take your shoes off yet.
Yes.
He's like runs across it, and he turns around and looks at me, and he goes, "Ouch!" Yeah, you'll learn.
And then when he runs back, you're like, "Don't run."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but quickly walk.
Yeah, it's interesting to find out, how much he can learn, and watching it, happen live and in
one
in
time.
person.
That's all you got to do. At one time, you learn.
He knows. It's like the old stick your finger in that light socket.
That's right.
And you'll see what happens.
You won't do it again.
But when it comes to our taxes, Jeff, and our retirement, it's not something that we even learn while we do it. No. Number one, we don't want to figure this out on the fly because 72 is going to roll around, or 73 these days, and be required to take out our required minimum distribution from the federal government or face insane penalties.
Yes.
And then we realize, you know what? I'm paying more in taxes than I legally have to.
Exactly.
So learning how the taxes work on the fly is a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
It's the equivalent of burning your feet on the pool deck.
Or you go, ooh, I shouldn't have ran across there, which would be your last year's tax return.
Yes.
Kind of that concept.
So sometimes there's no going back, but when it comes to getting prepared for that RMD or getting prepared for 65 when you can start taking advantage of Medicare, taking advantage of maybe retiring early. These are all things that you want to plan for.
Yes, you have to. There's a lot of weird stuff that can go on if you say, I'm retiring at 62. Or you even hear some people like, I retired at 55. There's a lot of issues that need to be addressed. And as long as you know what they are, you're good to go.
Yeah. You ever get somebody to come in and say, Jeff, I just turned 65 and I'd like to retire. And you say, all right, when are you thinking? And say, well, today.
Yeah.
Well,
they usually
today's my birthday.
They say yesterday.
Yeah, well, yesterday. And he said, well, what have you done so far? Let's see what you've got going. And,
exactly.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Ooh, you should have come in 5 years ago.
Or 10 years ago.
Or 10 years ago.
Yes. There's tons that come in and go, I'm going to retire, but they're retiring on Social Security. That's it.
Yeah, or you're retiring and it looks like you're going to be paying so much more in taxes than what you have to. That's the name of the show. It's the name of the book that Jeff wrote that's out there. You can get a free copy from CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Keep what's yours. There are ways to keep more of money in your retirement accounts, on your paychecks, in your pocketbook. Otherwise, it would go out to the federal government in the form of taxes, and we don't want that to happen. So I'll keep more of it.
Exactly.
But you can't just say, hey, Mr. IRS, I want to keep more of my money.
They'll say,
sure. Well, thanks for asking. Most people just try to hide it from us. You have to do stuff.
Yeah.
You have to make plans. And frankly, with the amount of stuff that's out there these days, you kind of have to ask a professional.
Exactly.
How do I do this?
And what can I do, and how will it help me?
Yes.
It's that easy.
And that's what Jeff is here for. And I think the best, here's a review of how it's worked for me. I am, full disclosure, Jeff does my taxes. Full disclosure, Jeff consults me when it comes to getting my retirement in order and where to put money and what buckets to put it in. Jeff does all that for me because I realized, I looked at my wife and I said, I don't know how this works. And she goes, I don't either. So it's like, well, let's go find somebody that does.
Exactly.
Just talking to you before we started here, we're going to do a lot of retirement stuff later on in the show, but just talking to you, it says, well, I want to max out my 401k and I want to max out my Roth. But with any money left over, what can I do with it? And you just rattle off 3 or 4 or 5 different other things that have tax savings incorporated into it, because otherwise the option would be, well, I'll just put it in a can.
Well, you put it in
bury it
jar,
in the backyard.
bury it in the backyard. You just got to remember where those mason jars were buried.
Right. Get a bloodhound and go looking for your money. I'll just stuff it under my mattress.
Here's a funny story. This is true. An uncle that lived out in central Illinois had a gold coin collection. This goes back a ways. He literally didn't want to put it in the banks, didn't trust the banks, and he buried it on his property.
Didn't even trust cash. He put it all in gold coins.
It was gold coins, and buried it. And it literally took my cousins probably 5 weekends to find it.
Oh, my gosh.
And he passed away unexpectedly.
With no treasure map.
Nothing. Oh, there was a half-witted one, but they couldn't figure out what he was saying.
Did they know that he had done this?
They knew that it was missing, so they assumed there was no safe deposit boxes. It had to be out there, and he talked about, burying stuff in a mason jar. Nobody would ever find it. It was his. And literally they had to get metal detectors and roam the property. They found it. It took them about 5 weekends to do it, but they found it.
Was it close to the house?
It was within 100 feet of where he said it was.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
But in the woods, that's light years away.
Right.
So
I left you a map.
He did. So it's kind of funny. So when you say bury it in mason jars, that's literally what he did. So
yeah. But there is a better way, and there's also definitely a better way than putting it under your mattress.
Yes.
Nobody really does that anymore. But socking it into a savings account at your bank.
Earning nothing.
Don't do that either. There's better things to do with it out there. Not only can you get a better return on your money, but you can also probably avoid a lot of taxes as well, depending on what you're doing. The only problem, nobody knows that these things exist. And not to mention, we're going to tell you about them in the next segment, but then you're going to go home and say, honey, I found out about this deferred compensation. Well, how do you get that to start? And you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because not only do you have to find out about these things, but then you have to figure out how do I implement them.
Yes, and that's the biggest thing. That's
into
where a
my
lot of
every
people,
2-week paycheck.
They just drop it and say, too much effort.
That sounds great.
We'll help you.
I'll get around to figuring out how that all works at some point. But the beauty of Jeff Zufall is that he can do that for you.
Yes.
Not only will he tell you, hey, deferred compensation, but he'll say, I do it too. And this is how you do it, and just get me on the phone with your HR company,
That's all we need.
And I'll work it out. And that's also awesome. Because, my wife can put – we don't really have an HR department here at the Big 550.
No.
We kind of run fast and loose, Jeff. But you can help me out because you know who to talk to here. But my wife can put you on speakerphone with her HR person.
Yeah.
She works for a big company. And you and the HR person can talk and speak
away.
the lingo.
Yep.
And my wife can listen and pick up here and there. And then after the meeting, you can say, this is what we did.
Yeah.
in a way that my wife can understand.
Exactly.
Because HR people, they talk in, you people.
Yeah.
You talk in abbreviations.
Yes.
And what are those things where, FSA, what is that?
Yeah.
That's I don't know. It's one of those abbreviations, but you guys speak your own lingo.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to have you guys talk to each other than have me try to explain what you told me to someone else.
In third party and second party, it gets really difficult. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, they might have said this and they might have said that.
Is it an
but
FSA or a GSA or an
Yeah.
ISA?
Yeah.
So a game of telephone, just have the two people that know what they're doing talk to each other. And
Exactly.
you can sit there in the background and pick up every other word. So we'll talk a little retirement, but here's the headline, and we always talk about that. You listen to certain radio stations in town, and they'll really be, the IRS is out to get you.
Yes.
Did you know that the IRS is a
Running
super
hard.
predator? They'll come and while you're sleeping,
Yeah.
smother you with a pillow. And it's like, what does this mean? And then at the end, they're like, if you haven't paid your taxes in 3 years.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, well, I got
That's not me.
Yeah, I'm number one. That's not me. Number two, I'm a pretty reasonable person, and would have to think if I didn't pay my taxes for 3 years, then of course the IRS is going to
They're
want
going to
to
show up. Sure.
talk to me.
Yep.
But there is something that they are coming after us for, and it's not the IRS.
Yes.
It's something different entirely. FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Agency. This is for people who have LLCs out there, people who have businesses, corporations.
This is for anybody that has a company. And I say company, not a corporation, but corporations have to abide by this. LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, sole proprietors, DBAs, doing business as. And you only made $500 last year. This applies to you. So in 2024, this is under what's called the Corporate Transparency Act. And it's basically going against small business owners. This has been out there probably 3 years. They're just now starting to enforce it. And in 2024, everybody has to register, not with the IRS, but with the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And that's FinCEN. So what those guys do is money laundering. So if you have any pass-through entities, any small corporations, you have to file this paperwork. And everybody's like, okay, not a big deal. I'll file the paperwork. This is Big Brother watching. And the trick to it is if you don't file this by the end of 24 and our new corporations created in 24 have to do it immediately, it's a $500 a day penalty.
A day?
A day, and up to 2 years imprisonment for not filing it.
I don't know which is worse.
They're both kind of bad.
Yeah.
But what it's asking for, again, this is the stuff that it's asking for. This is already out there. IRS already knows this. The federal government knows it. The states know it. But this is FinCEN. So they're a totally different entity. And they want full legal name according to the Secretary of State.
Yeah, what kind of information am I giving them?
Yeah, so it's full legal name according to the Secretary of State. So you have to go and
Of me or the company?
the company, and you got to download what's called a good standing report, which says, hey, you paid your fees or your annual renewals. Any trade businesses like doing business as counts in here. So if you got a DBA name, which means you really don't register, you just say, hey, I'm holding myself out as Jim's Uber service, and you clock it as a DBA. Complete, and this is the important one, a complete current street address of the principal place of business, and P.O. boxes don't work, and a third-party agent does not work. So they want your principal place of business.
They want you.
And then the state that you do business, then they get into tribal or foreign jurisdiction of formation, typically state of Missouri, Illinois, the IRS taxpayer identification number, okay? And then the kicker is, let's say you report this. You put it out there in January of 24, everything's great, and then you move. You gave them your principal residence. You gave them your primary business address.
But you changed it.
And you change it, you got 30 days to notify them. Otherwise, it's $500 a day, 2 years imprisonment. So FinCEN, typically what they're looking for is money laundering is what they're looking for. So you go, okay. What are they really digging for? What they're looking for is shell companies that are hiding out there, I guess, that really don't run money through them and are there a front for something else.
So this is what I was going to ask you. It seems like these tax crime people out there that finally get caught, or maybe they never do get caught, is because they've got all these LLCs that money's going, and you know, once I guess the IRS starts looking into it, they're like, this is a web of tangled
you got to
mess.
realize now this was put in, I think 3 years ago was the Corporate Transparency Act was put out there, and this was buried in it. Nobody paid attention to, and they're like, 2024 is way down the road. Well, guess what? It's 5 months away, 6 months away.
Yeah.
So here's the flip. The flip is if this is owners. So what the first part was companies, the owners and the applicants. So then each owner that owns at least 25% of the company, directly or indirectly, has to report full legal name, date of birth, your address, your home address. You got to give them a copy of your driver's license, a passport, something that proves who you are. And then you basically have to have imaging of the documents, your passport, your driver's license, your Social Security number, or your Social Security card, all has to be sent in.
And who's going to tell me to do this?
No one is.
Who's going to remind me?
We will, for the clients, that all of our clients sitting out there. The funny part is I just, here the last couple of days, got an email from a client. There's somebody on TikTok or YouTube that's like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end, who was saying it. He's close. And my client's like, do I really have to do that?
Right.
Because he's got two companies. I was like, yes, you do. I go, it's not until the end of 24. The paperwork isn't even, the forms aren't even out there yet.
Wait, so somebody on TikTok is even talking about this.
Exactly.
Saying, hey, if you got an LLC, they're coming
They're
for you.
coming for you.
You
Exactly.
gotta fill out the paperwork on TikTok.
Yes.
That's
So I was kind
interesting.
of stunned. But you'll see.
I
weird
thought that was for like dance videos and
No, apparently there's also, I got the one email from somebody maybe a month ago. And
financial TikTok.
They're like, why do I have to pay taxes? This guy says I don't. And they said, oh, if you set up an LLC, you get a free business loan or some crazy, $5,000. And then you just run everything through your company and write everything off. And I was like, whoa, I'm not signing that return.
Right,
But
yes.
so the concept, if you have a company that you want to say it's not a hobby, it's a company, you have to have a profit motive at the end of the day, period. You can lose money first couple of years, IRS will go with it. But again, if you have zero income 2-3 years in a row and you have all these expenses, they're going to blow it out.
So careful what you see on TikTok.
Yes.
Do not take your financial or business tax advice from TikTok.
Yes,
I
but-
don't know why I even have to say that.
Yeah, but this is huge. And I say huge because of the penalties on the backside of this, and this is not the IRS. You're not reporting to the states. You're reporting to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
So this isn't a tax thing.
No, just they want information, who you are.
They
where
want to
are
make
you
sure
located.
that you aren't running goofy shell companies and laundering money.
Exactly. So
That's what
anybody
this
that,
is.
that doesn't produce this, they drop these shell companies and walk away or shut them down. So remember, in COVID, 2021, and I think the first part of 22, the IRS said that there were more taxpayer ID numbers issued for companies than historically ever. So you go, okay, everybody was working from home. They were creating their own little companies. They might have said, all right, this is the time to break off and go do my own thing.
Going to turn my hobby into a business.
Exactly. So you go, is that why it was created? Not quite sure, but it's kind of a, I won't say an invasion of privacy, but it kind of is because IRS already has this data. The state's already got the data. Now you have a third party who's going to look over everybody and say, you didn't report this correct.
Interesting. So they're looking for money launderers, and that's what this is.
Basically is, yeah.
If anybody has any questions, and we got an LLC because we have a beach condo. I know I mention this all the time. We rent it out for Airbnb, and we use it for ourselves for vacation. But since we got an LLC for it, we have to fill out one of these things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we had this talk.
Yes. There's a lot of people that have, like I said, little, I'll call it hobbies that they run through and that they report the income. Those are the ones that have to be reported. So,
But it has nothing to do with the IRS. The
Nothing.
IRS does
Nothing.
different things when it comes
Yes.
to your LLCs and all that
Yep.
stuff.
This is reporting to Financial Crimes Network.
all right, just to
or
make
Enforcement
sure
Network,
right,
FinCEN.
that the people that are running companies are actually doing it for financial purposes that are on the up and up, and
Exactly.
that there's no money laundering.
And remember, FinCEN, so if you have foreign accounts, you report annually on your tax return to FinCEN. You say, hey, I got an account in India or Canada or Mexico, and it's worth, my highest account balance was $5 last year. You just fill it out and tell them that. That's all you got to do. And they enforce that. So now they're questioning, I mean, one of the biggest things on an S corp is you can't have foreign ownership in it. So it's all, everybody's got to be from the States.
Well,
Or a
theoretically,
U.S. citizen.
right, we're all doing this on the up and up, and I don't mind filling out another piece of paper, but it seems like the penalty
Is a little stiff.
is a little $500 a day.
A
If you
day.
move, you have to let us know within 30
So
days.
all the hustle bustle of you moving your personal residence, and then you're like, hey, and the post office, so here's the trick. Post office will not send forwarding to this. You have to notify them yourself, and there'll be a form that you say, hey, I
Man.
moved. Here's my old address. Here's my new address. Thank you very much.
If you own a business or you have an LLC, just bookmark this
Oh, this is
on your
huge.
computer.
Yep.
So that you always know it's there and you're always reminded, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
let me
and
make
it's
sure I'm up to
30
date on this.
days.
30 days
yeah.
after you move or 30 days past the deadline, and boom, they're on you.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So
I'm glad
big
you brought-
changes.
yeah. Glad you brought it up, but all the more reason to find Jeff Zufall and get him on your side, because this is something that we'll need a reminder for. And,
Oh, yeah.
I don't think the average person, the average LLC owner, is going to
Go
be
about your day, doing your thing.
circling the calendar
Yeah.
and saying, oh, I got to fill that out.
Yes, the Corporate Transparency Act is in effect,
And the beauty is we just told everybody about it, but you can't even fill out the paperwork yet. because
Doesn't
it
exist.
It's not there yet. All right. If we do want to get Jeff Zufall on our side, 636-394-5524, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Jeff Zufall is the Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. 636-394-5524. Beautiful offices located out in Ellisville. We'll go to commercial break, and when we come back, talking retirement and what are the options that are out there, and can you start taking, are you over 50? Can you start taking advantage of that catch-up provision? We'll talk about it on the other side of this. Keep what's yours. Keep more of your money on your paycheck, in your retirement accounts, in your bank account, in your pocket, rather than going off to the federal government by way of taxes. We can tell you how to do it, and that's what Jeff lives for. He eats and breathes this stuff,
Unfortunately, I do.
Yeah, and you're looking pretty good these days, so you must not be, eating too much.
No, it's not tax season. Otherwise, be a zombie walking around.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff's living his best life, but we all know that tax time is right around the
It's
corner.
coming.
We'll be back right after this on the Big 550.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the show, back on the Big 550, back to Keep What's Yours. Now, Jeff, we talked about this catch-up provision. This is if you're over 50 years old, and we're going to talk about retirement now and get a little deep into it. But if you're over 50 years old, you can do what's known as the catch-up provision. If you want to
Yes.
explain really quickly what that
Okay,
is.
so if you have, like at work, you have your 401k out there, you're doing your, $20,500 in contributory contributions. But if you're over 50, you get an extra $6,500 in this catch-up provision that you can put in extra money, more than anybody else under 50. The problem with it is the Secure Act 2.0, which we'll explain maybe next week, put a provision out there. And the provision basically says, starting in the year 2024, the catch-up provision will only be allowed to be put into after-tax Roth accounts. So if you're using this catch-up provision and it's designed for people over 50 that go, whoa, I don't have enough money for retirement. And so they jam 27 grand a year through their 401k. And that's a lot of money. You do have to put food on the table. I get that. But the trick is this 2023 is the last year where you could do $20,500 into your contributory 401k, pre-tax, all pre-tax. Add another $6,500 on top that, pre-tax, or 27 grand, and you reduce your taxable income by $27,000. Next year, you'll be able to do your it goes up, but just to keep the math simple, your $20,500 pre-tax. But your $6,500 catch-up, the federal government gave us a perk. It's now $7,500, but it has to go into an after-tax Roth. So it helps you plan for retirement, but you will not get the tax savings on that $6,500.
So just to explain really briefly, and I'm doing this because I am an idiot, and I still to this day do not know how all of these things work. But you have two options, generally speaking. You do the 401k, pre-tax 401k that you can sock money away into, or you can do a Roth that you pay the taxes, then put it in, but as it grows inside that Roth, and as long as you follow the rules,
it stays
59 and a half or 5 years.
Yeah, stays tax deferred, and hypothetically, you do not pay tax on it at a later date.
Everything that grows inside that Roth, you already paid the taxes
Yes.
when you put it in. Everything that grows inside that Roth, if you follow the rules of the Roth, 59 and a half, is yours to keep, and you don't have to pay taxes on the gains.
Yes.
Okay, so there's these two things out there. What I always had an issue with the fact that I don't make enough money, that's a big issue. But what I haven't
Mr. Dorsey
had an issue with was that I had no idea that these things were capped.
Yes.
I figured the more money you make, the more you can sock away. And, if it's $20,000 on the pre-tax.
Pre-tax, yes.
And what's the cap on the Roth?
Roth is, it's technically the same. So if you wanted to do it all in Roth IRA, which means you're not taking a pre-tax deduction, you could do 27 grand.
Okay, so there are caps on it. I'm never going to hit this because, as you said, I got to put food on the table.
Exactly.
I got to, pay my mortgage. I can't be taking $27,000 a year and stuffing it into a retirement account.
But let's say that you've been married, or kids are raised, they're moved out of the house, you're not paying for school anymore, bills are pretty much settled, and you go, ooh, I'm 55 years old and I want to retire at 65. You got 10 years, but you really didn't put any money away. That's where this catch-up provision kicks into gear.
Okay.
So in a sense, it's been out there for a while, the catch-up. Typically on most corporate 401k plans, it was hidden a little bit. You had to have to make a phone call and say, I want to do a catch-up provision, and they kind of open it up for your 401k. But 2023 is the last year that you'll be able to do your full pre-tax contribution into your 401k and pre-tax on your catch-up provision.
So the government offers, just in general, they offer a pre-tax 401k. This is something that we can do. We can sock it away.
Yes.
We don't have to pay taxes on it. When we go and take it out, we have to pay taxes on it.
So what you're doing is you're putting the taxation off until a later date when you do pre-tax. So look, there's three types of money. There's taxable, which means you pay tax, whatever you have in that account, we'll call it bank accounts, brokerage accounts, money markets, that you pay tax. Whatever interest, dividends are generated each year, you pay tax on it, year in, year out as you go forward. But you have access to that money. You drive down to the bank, you could write a check out of your brokerage account, whatever. Then there's tax-deferred accounts. Those are your 401ks, your traditional IRAs, the deferred comp programs, where what you're doing is you're deferring taxation today to pay it at a later date.
And that's
simple.
kind of the thing that we all kind of understand is we're playing tax bracket bingo.
Exactly.
My tax bracket's too high today, so I'm going to try to pay it later.
And the theory on it is if you are at just simple math, let's say that, and again, I say this, if you're at a 24% tax bracket today, and you're putting money all pre-tax, hypothetically, if you could, when you retire, if you take that money out at a 22% tax bracket, you go, ooh, it's a 2% difference. but you're paying 22% on money you put it away. Save 24, you're paying 22 today.
And 2% on $100,000 is
$2 grand that you're saving.
Just
so
say you had 500,000 or $1 million.
It gets bigger and bigger.
Gets bigger and bigger.
So that's the math that you do on this on a regular basis, saying, hey, and there's times if you're younger and you don't make a lot of money, maybe Roth's better route to run. Seriously. Because you're going to put it in after tax. It's going to grow tax deferred. But the third box is the tax-free or tax-efficient account, which is a Roth.
Yeah.
So,
and that is one of the things, if you're at a 24% tax bracket and you put stuff away pre-tax and it grows and grows and grows, and then when you go to retire or you hit your RMD and for some reason you're at a 26% tax bracket, you played the game wrong.
How about to the standpoint if you're at the highest tax bracket, 37.9%? You're socking your money away, and then when you retire, you don't need that income anymore. You don't need to make 400 grand plus, and you can drop down to a 24% tax bracket. You're saving a ton of money.
Ton of money.
So that's the game that's played. And again, there's times where you get to your peak earning power, and you say, "Man, I could probably make this kind of money for the next 6, 8, 10 years, pre-tax as much as you can." If you say, "I'm already past that stage," maybe a Roth's better route.
But why does the government put caps on it? Why does the government? Because it's my money.
So
what do they care if I'm growing it in a tax deferred?
They do care.
Yeah,
they do care.
Well, I know. I'm leading you down. Why do they care? Why do they put caps on how much we can put into these accounts? And why are they saying starting next year the catch-up provision has to be a Roth rather than a pre-tax?
So that
there obviously is something that affects them.
Yeah, they want the tax money for next year going forward.
They don't want you to be saving money pre-tax because they want to tax you.
Exactly.
Now.
And there are people that could live off. I mean, I'd look at it sometimes. I laugh. I go, "There's no way," but they do, and more power to them. They can live very frugal as you go forward, and they would be the people that would keep deferring $27,000 or $30,000 a year pre-tax, saving a ton of money.
So does the government regret offering this to begin with? Because obviously they don't seem very happy with.
Oh, no,
you
got to realize in the Secure Act that was put, Secure Act 2.0, there was, I think, 85 or 87 different provisions, a lot of them good, to retirement plans starting 23, 24,
so they are
and
still
25.
putting stuff out there for us.
Oh, yeah, tons.
The government is just saying we have to draw the line somewhere.
They drew the line somewhere. Apparently somebody in a back office, that windowless building, and everybody's in gray suits, they said, "Hey, that catch-up provision's hurting us. We need the tax on it." And so they're doing it. Now, again, you say the bad part, hey, you still can do 70. I mean, they gave you the perk from 65 at $7,000 this year. It'll be $7,500 next year, 2024. And you go, hey, they still raise the threshold for money that you could put away. And you go, okay, but it's all after tax. And not saying a Roth is bad by no means, but if you are to 37% tax bracket, you want every tax deferral you can get your hands on for the time being.
Yeah. So let's say this, and if people, obviously, if there weren't any caps on this, the really rich people would be taking advantage of this.
I mean, if you made $1 million, look at the what is it, the ATM tax, which is alternative minimum tax. The concept was back in the day, J.P. Morgan had a net worth of $50 million. If he generated $1 million in taxable income, he donated $1 million away and made his tax go away. And they went, whoa, no.
Right, because he doesn't need any more money.
Exactly.
But he's still raking it in.
Exactly. So and he never pays tax on it.
Right.
So kind of the same concept, but on a dumbed-down level.
Yes. So they're forcing us to pay taxes on something.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I think what was the last conversation we had where there was a required minimum tax?
Well, the RMD, which is the required minimum distribution.
Well, there's that, but in the infrastructure bill or
if your IRA account is over $10 million or something insane like that, there's a tax that they'll force back out on an annual basis. That was Peter Thiel, who created PayPal with what's his name? It's terrible.
Elon.
Elon.
Yeah.
And so he took penny stock, was worth a couple bucks of 100,000 shares of PayPal, put it in his Roth IRA, and poof, today it's worth $100 and something million Roth I'll never pay tax on. Genius planning. I mean, believe me.
Well, he got lucky.
He got real lucky.
Is what happened. He had worthless stock that actually skyrocketed.
But now there's a rule that says, hey, if your Roth is worth $10 million or whatever the number is, you're going to have to pay an annual tax every year on that.
Right.
So,
but theoretically, if you're a normal person and you sock money away into Roth, you already paid taxes. You
exactly.
don't have to pay taxes.
You don't pay it again
on money that's already been taxed.
So here's something from a tax level that a lot of people don't pay attention to. Ran into it a couple of times this last tax season. You put your Roth contribution in there, everything's great. The problem is do you report it on your tax return every year? So if you put your $6,000 into a Roth, you don't get a tax benefit for it, but we see tons of people that do not report it on their tax return. So there's a little form in a tax return that will keep a rolling tab of your Roth contributions because if you ever take money out of a Roth, the 1099 they send you will say taxable amount not determined. You plug it into a tax return and it sometimes says, hey, the full amount's taxable, have a nice day. And you go, that's impossible. It's a Roth. It shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. The problem is the reporting process for a Roth distribution is at the tax return level, which means every year you should be reporting your $6,000 you're putting in, keeps a rolling tab. It says, hey, you put $10,000 into this Roth over the last couple of years and you took $1,000 out, clocks it as non-taxable because it's applying it against your contribution.
So even though it's my money, I've already paid taxes on it. I could have buried it in a mason jar out in the back, but I didn't. I put it into the Roth. The government wants to know what's going in, what's coming out.
Yeah.
Even though it's my money.
It's your You still have to have an accounting on it. It's basically a cost basis going forward. And again, because the rule is 5 years or 59 and a half, whichever's longer, for the earnings to come out of your Roth. So if you put $1,000 in a Roth, you can literally take your $1,000 back out a week later.
Is there a box on an IRS form that says how much money did you bury in the backyard?
No, not yet. Give them a year or two.
Yeah, they
already know the Bitcoin. They're digging deep on digital currency. That's the next adventure down the road. So.
But back to retirement planning and back to caps on what we put in. So say I actually do make a pretty good living, and I am able to take advantage of the 401k and the Roth. Because at a certain point, if I was making, $10 million, these things aren't available to me anymore.
You get capped out pretty much of everything.
But I cap out. I'm making a good living, and the house is paid off, the cars are paid off, the kids are gone, and I do want to max out my Roth and my 401k. But say I even have more money left over than that. I'm making a great living. I saved $27,000
exactly
for my retirement. But say I still have another $20,000 that I don't need, and I don't want to necessarily put under the mattress.
Something that's been put out there. They've tried to reel it back a couple of times, which is a backdoor Roth, which means if depending upon your age, if you're under 50, it's 65. If you're over 50, it's 75. And you do a non-deductible IRA, which means you just plop it into an IRA. You don't take a tax deduction. It's not a Roth. And you put it in there. That sets your basis. And literally, you got to do this. We see it all the time where people goof it up. You've got to convert it to a Roth within a couple of days. Has to be the same tax year. So we see people that put money into a non-deductible IRA December 26th, right after Christmas. And then January 10th, they convert it to a Roth.
Nope, you messed up.
You messed up. So it's a taxable event to you when you take it out because you have that basis. So you put it in and literally convert it the next day. Mm-hmm. This has been both administrations were after this one because this is anybody who makes enough money that they cannot contribute to a Roth in the outside world.
So is there a cap on the backdoor Roth?
Yeah, depending upon your age. So basically, easiest rule is under 50 it's $6,000, over 50 it's $7,000.
So I do that. I do the backdoor Roth. I still have money left over. Then you started saying, well, have you looked into deferred compensation?
If your company, and these are typically, I'll say Fortune 500-ish, maybe a little bit bigger than that, companies will offer you deferred comp. And all that means is you're taking part of your salary, You are deferring it until a later date. But in a deferred comp program, you have to tell the IRS, I want this at age 65, 66, and I want it paid out to me over 3 years, or all in a lump sum. And they have
You got to set that up ahead of time.
Has to be. It's a little bit more stringent than a 401k because you have the ability to start and stop. But the deferred comp, if you put 10% of your income on top of that in a deferred comp, then you say, I want my first payout at 65, and I want to be paid a third over 3 years. And it goes into your own little account. You can invest it, do all that stuff, but you can't take it until the year that you said when
So
you're going to.
it's locked up, but you're still getting tax benefits.
Yeah. You didn't pay tax when you were at the 37% tax bracket. You'll pay it when you're at a 24.
Have you taken advantage of an FSA, which is what we're using for my son's school? Have you taken advantage of an HSA? I still have money left over. I don't want to just put it in a savings account at the bank because it doesn't do anything for me in there. I can put it into an HSA, a health spending account, a FSA, a flex spending account.
A flex spending account, you have to say, hey, I want to do $5,000 a year, and then you allocate it like, child care, whatever the case may be, comes out pre-tax. HSA will allow you to do, it's supposed to be for medical expenses. And there is a downfall to the HSA, and the only downfall is if you're not healthy, you're going to spend your HSA money.
Right.
If you're healthy, do an HSA all day. And you're running that risk that you can build up enough cash, because I think you can do $7,200 a year, and if you're single, and if you have a family, it's like $8,500 or $8,600 a year that you could put away. But it's just like an IRA or 401k; it's all pre-tax.
It's all pre-tax, and if you use the money for health spending,
it's tax-free.
It's all tax-free. You
Exactly.
don't have to pay those taxes back.
And you say, well, what if we have clients that have $100,000 built up in a HSA? They're healthy. They've never really, they go for a checkup or whatever. The theory is that money in an HSA, you never roll it over to an IRA. You leave it in an HSA. You go on Medicare, and you got to pay your monthly premiums when you retire. The HSA pays the premiums for you, tax-free. Any medical expense going forward, as long as it's a medical expense, pays it.
And theoretically, as we get older, our medical bills will get higher.
We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. I forget what it is. The average person's going to spend $100,000-something in retirement for our health care expense.
Whether so you might as well
whether it's
sock
premiums
it away
or
pre-tax and let the government pay the taxes on it.
Yes. And again, the only downfall is if you're not healthy, you're going to burn through your $7,200 or $8,600 in no time flat, and you really don't have that savings at a later
date. You didn't realize the savings.
Exactly.
Do you still have money left over, Josh? Well, in fact, I do. Have you thought about a 529, saving for either your kids' college fund or your grandkids' college fund?
If you're a grandparent, use it for your grandkids. And a lot of people there's new rules that came out, Secure Act again, said, I believe in 2024 or 25, it basically says if you've had a 529 plan for more than 14 years and you overfunded it, so a lot of people jam money into it, made good returns over the last decade or so, and then your kid gets a free ride. You go, man, I got all this money sitting in a 520. What do I do with it? The theory is in 2024, you have the ability to go into the 529, extract, it'd be $6,500 because hypothetically the child be under 50, which is their Roth contribution amount, and move $6,500 from that 529 back to the child's Roth, and do that every year until you hit $35,000, and then stop. Change beneficiaries and do the same thing. So you can make your spouse the beneficiary, and then you're dragging $7,500 out each year for her Roth contribution until you hit $35,000, stop, and then rotate as you go.
So you can save money for college, and say your kid is a math whiz and gets a full ride. You can convert that college that you don't have to spend anymore.
Takes you a little time to convert it, but you don't have to pay the tax on it.
Convert it to a Roth.
Exactly.
And that's another option.
Exactly.
So it's like, let me go through the list again. I've maxed out my 401k pre-tax. I've maxed out my Roth. What else is out there, Jeff? Well, have you tried the backdoor Roth? Okay, I maxed that out. Have you done deferred compensation?
Yeah.
Have you looked into the HSA? Have you looked into the FSA to see what's working? Like I said, we are currently using an FSA. These things are out there for normal people. Have you socked money away for your kids' or grandkids' college fund? What if, tell me if you've ever seen this. What if I've maxed out everything that the government has to offer?
There's people that do it, and then you go to a standard brokerage account.
And then the government says, we don't have anything left for you to take advantage of. You have to invest your money the old-fashioned way.
Put it in a taxable account. You're going to pay tax every year on capital gains, dividends, interest.
And we're the government. We're out of your business. Out of the business. We're going to take taxes from you, but we're not going to be a partner with you on this anymore.
Yep.
Because you've socked away too much money.
Yeah.
There's caps. There's caps in place.
I could name probably on one hand people that do
have
that.
Done that.
Yeah.
But and these things aren't even offered to the richest of the rich people because they would,
I mean, you're going to go buy a sports franchise and take more tax deductions and tax loopholes than you've ever dreamed of.
Yeah.
Where you're saving not just 27 or 30 grand a year, you're saving $5 million in a transaction.
But I could say, well, I've maxed everything out, federal government. What am I supposed to do with the rest of this money that I want to save for retirement? And they say, well, you can put it under your mattress.
Yes.
Or you can
the
put
old
it in
trusty
a brokerage account.
mason jar.
The mason jar. You can put
just
it in
mark
gold
it well
and
on your
bury
map.
You can buy real estate.
Yes.
You can invest it
Yes.
in all
Rental
these other
property.
places,
Yeah.
but you're just not going to do it with the government anymore because you maxed it out.
Exactly.
But I cannot imagine that somebody is making enough money that they have all of this left over.
Like I said, I can count on one hand the people that do that
that
have multiple things going in 1 year.
But there's a lot of stuff out there.
There's a lot, tons.
Which means that there's a lot of stuff that we're not taking advantage of.
Yes, tons.
So if you like what you've heard and you say, you know what, I always end up at the end of the year with a little money left over and I'm just dumping it into a brokerage account, well, talk to Jeff. The whole thing, and this is a later show for a later date, and it's a show that we've done before at a prior date, but there's buckets that you want to be in: pre-tax, Roth. You want to have money in a brokerage account.
You want it in all three. You want a taxable account that you pay tax on every year, but you could drive to the bank and go, hey, you won't get it, but you give me my 50 grand.
Yeah.
They'll give you $2,500. You got to come back a week later. But
do I want money in real estate? Do I want money
tax
divested
deferred
into other things?
Exactly. And typically, you got to realize how complex your financial plan gets, because a lot of people go, "Ooh, I don't want to have to keep tabs on that." There are just too many moving parts. But the common denominator is a taxable account. You pay tax on it every year, but you have access to it. It's yours. You can go get it and go buy a boat, tomorrow. Tax deferred, that's your 401ks, your IRA, traditional IRAs. All you're doing is putting the taxation off to a later date, and then tax-free accounts are your Roths.
Yeah.
So
how much money do you want to be able to have access to? How much money do you not mind putting away for another 15 years or so?
Exactly.
You're going to have to retire at some point and live off something, so you might as well put as much away as you can, enough that you can still go out and have a steak dinner every once in a while. But just try to sock away as much as you can, because the government will give you tax benefits up to a certain
perks,
point. So you might as well try to max it out as much as you possibly can. 636-394-5524, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. That's Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Let's go to commercial break, and when we come back, we'll give the number out one more time, remind everybody that they can call you and that there are still more things that they can do, but we'll also remind you that if you had a tax refund in 2019 that you still haven't collected, there's billions of dollars out there for you. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. We'll be right back.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the show, no time left, Jeff, but I just have to mention, you said refunds from 2019. If you still haven't gotten your refund yet, or there's some things tied up?
If you haven't filed your return for 2019, but you typically get a refund, basically the time clock's almost up. You got till July 21st, I think, has to be postmarked by the 21st, so take a couple of days. If you don't file, you lose your 2019 refund. Literally, they just take it. So they got to go back 3 years and say, hey, so there's $1.5 billion in refunds sitting on the IRS's checking account that nobody's claimed.
And these are refunds.
These are refunds.
And if I don't take advantage of it, 3 years is kind of the max.
Yeah, typically 3 years, unless you could prove some hardship, like I was hospitalized for 2 years or something crazy.
Right.
You could get away with it. But typically they will say, oh, sorry, don't get it. Have a nice day.
Well, what happens to that money?
That goes into the IRS's checking account, and they get to go buy $7,000 toilet seats and all that fun stuff.
But you're just giving the money back to them.
You forfeit it technically.
Right.
Yeah.
You've done the right thing and generated a tax return, but since you didn't file your taxes.
Yes.
And this, I can't imagine, who are these people?
Typically somebody who just kind of like forgot, and it sounds crazy, but there's a lot of people that just went, oh yeah, I got to do that. And
a lot
they
of
just,
young people maybe?
Young people who
Yeah.
are like, I don't have to do that. And we're like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do. All right, so that's out there. So keep in mind, if you haven't filed your taxes for 2020, that's coming next year in 2021.
Exactly, and it goes on. So it's typically only if you get now. If you had a business, you paid tax, and you're going to amend that return. That's different. You still can recoup some of that money back because you're amending the return. This is just flat out, hey, or maybe they had the wrong mailing address and they mailed you a check, it got kicked back because the IRS does not
still
forward.
There. Right.
They don't forward checks.
They don't.
No, it goes right back to the IRS.
So just take a look at it and figure out, are you one of these people?
Yes.
Are you one of the $1.5 billion?
Yes, there's a lot of money
sitting
in
out there. 636-394-5524. That's Jeff Zufall, and let's remind everyone, do your taxes. For crying out loud, please just do your taxes and do them with Jeff. Let Jeff take care of it.
Yes,
He does my
we'd love
taxes. He does the taxes for me. He does it for my parents. Heidi's parents are now with Jeff. So Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. The number again, 636-394-5524. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com.